Welcome everyone to the game between the five-time world champion Viswanathan Anand and the Prince of Chess Alireza Firouzja at the Tech Mahindra Global Chess League. Vishy with the white pieces opens his game with e4. We have the Sicilian, knight to f3, d6, and Vishy goes for the Moscow variation with bishop b5 check, castles, and Alireza asks a question to the bishop. Vishy takes it, bishop takes d7, and now pawn to c3, building up the center with d4. Firouzja brings his knight out and attacks the pawn. Vishy defends the pawn with rook e1, and we have bishop to g4, pinning the knight on f3. Anand asks a question to the bishop, and the bishop drops back, keeping this pin intact. Now, if you look at the position carefully, black has the bishop pair, but in return, white has a very strong center and space advantage. Alireza pushes his pawn to e6, and now Vishy plays his pawn to d5, gathering space here and also putting his pawns on the opposite color of the remaining bishop on the board. Now bishop e3 and knight d2 is a normal plan, but Vishy goes for queen b3. He breaks the pin, puts pressure on b7, and Firouzja develops bishop e7 and asks Vishy if he wants to take this pawn on b7, which is possible, but then the knight would have been taken, breaking the structure. So knight goes to d2, slightly passive there, and Firouzja is all ready to jump to c5 to attack the queen. Vishy brings the knight out to c3, and now knight to c5. First he plays b5, knight jumps to f1, and now I believe he'll go knight to c5 here. Yes, he plays his knight, attacks the queen on b3, queen comes to c2, and you have rook to c8 played. Now the rook is putting pressure on the queen here, and Vishy plays the move pawn to a3. Black castles, and white plays his bishop to e3. So in this position you can see that Alireza has a clear plan of going f5. Meanwhile, it's not so easy to find what Vishy's plan should be. He tries to stop Alireza's plan by going knight to g3, and now queen d7, connecting the rooks, and Vishy plays pawn to f3, maybe trying to switch the queen to f2 to put pressure on this diagonal. It's clear that Firouzja is better, but it's also clear that it's not so simple to get things rolling. a5 played. He's planning to play b4 in this position. And so Vishy goes queen to d1. And bishop comes out to h4, pinning the knight on g3, and white plays his bishop to f2. We have a4 played in the position, trying to clamp down on the queen side pawns here, and rook goes to b1. We have knight jumping in to b3, and the queen comes up to d3 to attack the weakened pawn on b5, but you can see slowly and steadily Alireza taking control with rook c4, and Vishy not being able to make much progress. All of black pieces are moving in. Rook comes to c8, doubling down on the c file, and Vishy now plays rook f1. He's waiting for Alireza to make his next move. Alireza is also waiting with h6. There is a plan to play b4 and take here. That seems possible. And now Vishy plays his knight to e2, offering a trade of bishops. You can take, but there's a very nice maneuver with bd8. No, first he goes knight c5, hitting the queen. You can take the knight, by the way. Vishy goes queen to d2, and now your bishop g5, hitting the queen. But then Vishy is ready to meet it with bishop to e3. So Firouzja is deciding where to take his bishop. Should he trade it? He goes bd8. I love this move. He wants to bring his bishop out to a5 to put pressure on this diagonal here. And white goes knight to c1. The knight has moved away, and after bishop a5, I think Vishy would love to play his knight from a2 to b4. He does play his knight to a2. f5 played here. A nice move by Alireza Firouzja, and after takes, he takes back with the bishop. You can see the d5 pawn has become a bit weak. The fourth rank has opened up. There could be ideas of bishop takes h3. The knight jumps in to b3. And the bishop comes out to e3 square. Trying to be more active. And you have knight to d4. If bishop d4, you can take back with the pawn. He goes queen f2, and Alireza jumps in with his knight, defended by the bishop here, attacking the bishop on e3. Goes bishop b6, and he takes, queen takes. Now the b5 pawn is under pressure, so you can play rook c5 and kind of trap the queen there. But Firouzja goes knight d4. He's defending this pawn, but he's allowing knight b4 to knight c6. This interesting plan. And Vishy can now go for it. He thinks for a bit and plays it. Knight to b4. The game is getting super exciting, super thrilling. And now Firouzja, boom, sacks here, because if take, there is queen h3, and then the rook can swing over, and this would be a mate. So instead, Vishy goes knight c6. He ignores that Firouzja actually took a pawn, and now Alireza takes, pawn takes, and at this point Vishy is 2 pawns down after black will take on c6. He takes it with the rook. Queen b5 is possible, but allows queen a7 check, followed by the rook swinging over to the h file. So he goes queen b8 check, king h7. And now once again, taking here would be a mistake, but Vishy takes it. Gh3, and now Firouzja has to find the only move here to win. He goes queen h3, which is not a good move. There's rook d2, rook g2 defense. He had to find b4, takes an a3 to destabilize the position, but he did not. Rook d2 played. Vishy's found the best move. The position is now equal. It's crazy here. Can Firouzja here find another way to put pressure on Vishy, because Vishy has rook g2, and with the queen here, he can launch a counter attack on the black king. Alireza now pushes b4. He finds this idea. He's like, if I go here, he's going rook g2. He's saving himself. Let me go here, a3. Now the knight is weak. If you take here, it falls. And so b5 played, attacking the rook. And Firouzja now deciding which way to go. Maybe there's rook c7 blocking, because if you go rook c8, take the pawn here. He goes for it. Rook c8 on the board, but now queen d6 can be taken. What a game this is turning out to be. Absolutely insane. So much action. So much of action happening here. And Vishy takes the pawn. Alireza takes the pawn on b2. He's one step away from queening. c3 is hanging. The rook tries to swing over. He goes queen d3 check to the king. The king has to move away. King h8 played. And now the knight jumps into e4, blocking the rook from coming here. But there is rook d4 for Alireza to keep up the pressure. He goes rook b4. Now the only move, perhaps rook g2 or rook f2, and you're still in with a chance, because the queen protects the b1 square. It's not at all an easy move to play. And because rook here, then I can play rook b1 and bring my other rook to f1. It's a bit complicated. He goes queen b1, and that's a mistake. That's a big mistake, because now queen takes f1 works. Boom, takes it. If king takes, there's rook c1 check. If queen takes, there's also rook c1, and that is losing, or directly b1 queen. And Anand resigns. What a game by Alireza Firouzja here. He basically created so many complications, just like he every time does, and only the players who are able to kind of completely find all the answers to his questions, are able to survive him. Vishy tried his level best for several moves. In fact, at some point he had even equalized from being clearly worse. But then Alireza's accuracy was so high, his new problems that he posed were so high, that Vishy eventually collapsed under the pressure of time, under the pressure of position, and under the pressure of Alireza's genius. But still, what a game this was. And kudos to Vishy Anand for trying to figure out ways to hold himself. At this age, people are unable to calculate at the speed of youngsters, but he's still trying to do it. Meanwhile, Alireza Firouzja, we all know why he's called the prince and the speed demon of chess.